My beloved child, pause here for a moment, because the person connected to your heart is no longer able to pretend that everything is normal. Something happened today, something so unexpected, so emotionally powerful, that it changed the conversation they had been rehearsing inside their mind for weeks. They need to talk to you immediately, and what they want to reveal is much bigger than a simple apology, a passing thought, or a moment of loneliness. Stay with me. Don't look away now, because the smallest detail of what happened will explain why their silence suddenly became unbearable. Earlier today, your soulmate entered a familiar place carrying the same quiet weight they have carried for a long time. To everyone around them, they appeared composed. They answered ordinary questions, offered polite smiles, and continued with their responsibilities as though nothing inside them was unsettled. But beneath that calm surface, your name kept returning to them. It appeared between conversations, behind every distraction, and inside every moment when the room became quiet. They tried to push it away. They told themselves they needed more time. They insisted that speaking too soon might create confusion. Yet their heart knew that waiting had already created more confusion than honesty ever could. Then, without warning, something shifted. A person near them began speaking about a missed opportunity, a connection that had once felt destined but was lost because neither person had the courage to speak clearly. Your soulmate did not expect the story to affect them. At first, they barely listened. But then one sentence crossed the room and reached them with astonishing precision. Sometimes the person you are afraid to speak to is the person who has been waiting to understand you. In that instant, every sound around them seemed to fade. The sentence felt too close to the truth they had been avoiding. Their hands became still. Their expression changed. A memory of you rose before them, not a dramatic memory, but one of those small, unforgettable moments that only becomes meaningful after time has passed. They remembered the way you once listened when they could not explain what they were feeling. They remembered the patience in your presence, the warmth they noticed but never properly acknowledged, and the unspoken question they left hanging between you. What comes next changes everything, because that memory was followed by another sign they could not dismiss. As they stepped away from the room to collect their thoughts, their phone lit up. It was not a message from you. It was an old photograph resurfacing through a forgotten memory notification, captured on a day when the two of you were closer than either of you admitted. In the photograph, everyone else was looking toward the camera, but your soulmate was looking at you. They had never noticed it before. For the first time, they saw their own expression from the outside, and it revealed what their words had continually hidden. Their eyes held recognition, tenderness, and a fear of losing something they had not yet found the courage to claim. Don't skip, because the photograph was only the beginning. In its background stood a clock, frozen in the image at the exact minute your soulmate had awakened the night before with your name resting heavily on their mind. That detail unsettled them. It felt as though two separate moments had quietly reached across time and touched each other. A photograph from the past and a sleepless moment from the present were pointing toward the same unfinished truth. Your answer is closer than you think, but first you must understand why they waited. Their silence was never proof that they felt nothing. It was the shelter they built around feelings that had become too important to risk. They were afraid that speaking would change everything, yet they failed to see that remaining silent was already changing everything. Every delayed conversation created distance. Every unspoken truth left space for doubt. Every time they almost contacted you and stopped, they convinced themselves they were protecting the connection, when in reality they were allowing uncertainty to speak in their place. Your soulmate has replayed moments when they could have been clearer. They have remembered messages they typed and erased, questions they wanted to ask, and explanations they practiced only to abandon when the moment arrived. They feared that you had moved beyond them emotionally. They feared that you might hear their truth and wonder why it took so long. Most of all, they feared discovering that the door they hoped to enter had already closed. But today, something big happened. They realized their fear of losing you through honesty was smaller than the possibility of losing you through silence. Stay till the end, because their realization did not arrive gently. It came like light breaking through a sealed room. After seeing the photograph, they walked outside. The sky had been covered in clouds all morning, yet a narrow stream of sunlight suddenly appeared between them, falling across the path directly ahead. Near the edge of that path, they noticed two birds resting side by side on a railing. One flew away, circled once, and returned to the same place. To anyone else, it would have been an ordinary sight. To your soulmate, already standing at the edge of a life-changing decision, it carried spiritual symbolism they could feel without needing to explain. Departure did not always mean the end. Distance did not always erase connection. Sometimes a heart moved away only to understand where it truly wished to return. This is where the story begins, because the sight opened a memory they had buried. There was a time when your soulmate was ready to speak to you. They had chosen the words. They had even decided how the conversation would begin. But shortly before reaching out, they overheard something that made them question whether they were welcome in your life. It may have been an incomplete conversation, an assumption made from a distance, or advice from someone who did not understand what existed between you. Whatever it was, they accepted it as truth without asking you. That misunderstanding became the invisible wall between you. On one side stood your unanswered questions. On the other stood their hidden feelings. Neither of you could see the full picture, and the silence grew stronger because both hearts were reacting to information that had never been confirmed. Today, that wall cracked. The person who had originally influenced your soulmate's hesitation finally admitted that the situation had been misunderstood. Your soulmate learned that the words they had taken personally were never meant in the way they believed. The door had not been closed. They had simply stopped walking toward it. For several seconds, they could not respond. Relief arrived first, but it was quickly followed by regret. They understood how much time had passed because they had trusted an assumption more than the bond they felt with you. Something huge is waiting for you, because the confession they now want to make is not merely, "I missed you." It is deeper. They want to tell you that they made choices based on fear, that they allowed outside voices to become louder than their own inner knowing, and that even while appearing to move forward, some part of them remained turned toward you. They want to ask whether you felt the same invisible pause, whether you also sensed that the story had stopped in the middle rather than truly ended. They need to talk immediately because today's revelation removed the explanation they had used to justify waiting. They can no longer say the moment is unclear. They can no longer pretend they do not understand what their heart is asking them to do. And they can no longer dismiss the sequence of signs that appeared after the truth came out. A sentence from a stranger, an old photograph, a clock displaying a meaningful time, sunlight breaking through clouds, and a returning bird, each one seemed to repeat the same message in a different language: what was left unfinished must finally be faced. Stay with me, because before this message reaches its most surprising turn, you need to know that your soulmate is not approaching this conversation casually. They are thinking about every possible response you might give. They know they cannot demand an answer, erase the past with one explanation, or expect you to forget the uncertainty you endured. They are not preparing a performance. They are preparing to be honest. And honesty feels enormous to someone who has spent so long hiding behind carefully chosen silence. They have begun to understand that love is not proven by how deeply it is concealed. It is proven by the courage, patience, and responsibility with which it is expressed. That understanding is the first great change. The second is still coming. A quiet truth is moving toward the surface now, and once it is spoken, neither of you will be able to see the past in the same way again. Don't look away now. Your soulmate returned inside after seeing those two birds, but they were no longer the same person who had stepped outside minutes earlier. Something within them had settled, not because every fear disappeared, but because one truth had become stronger than those fears. They knew they needed to reach you. Yet just as they took out their phone, another person called their name. This was someone older, someone who had watched them closely for years and could recognize the difference between ordinary distraction and a heart carrying unfinished words. The person studied your soulmate's face and asked a simple question: "Who are you trying not to call?" Your soulmate froze. They had not mentioned you. They had not explained the photograph, the misunderstanding, or the strange pattern of moments that had unfolded. Still, the question found the exact place they had been protecting. They attempted to smile it away, but the older person did not press. Instead, they placed a small folded note on the table and said, "I wrote this to myself many years ago. Perhaps you need it today more than I do." Your soulmate opened it after the person walked away. The note contained only a few handwritten lines about courage, timing, and the cost of letting pride speak for the heart. But the final line made their breath catch: "If the truth is kind, sincere, and overdue, do not punish it by making it wait another day. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you," because that sentence broke the last excuse holding them back. They began typing your name into their phone, stopped, and looked again at the old photograph. This time, they noticed something else in the image. You were not looking directly at them, but your body was turned slightly toward them, as if even in a crowded space an unseen thread had been pulling both of you closer. The discovery brought an emotional twist they did not expect. For so long, your soulmate had believed they alone carried the intensity of this connection. They had told themselves that your kindness might have been ordinary, that the understanding in your eyes might have been something you offered everyone, and that the moments they treasured may not have held the same meaning for you. But the photograph challenged that belief. It did not prove every answer, yet it revealed a mutual orientation neither of you had consciously arranged. Among many people and countless distractions, both of you had been turned toward one another. What comes next changes everything. Your soulmate then remembered a conversation from long ago, one you may have assumed they forgot. You said something about wanting honesty more than perfection. At the time, they nodded and changed the subject. They did not tell you that your words followed them afterward. They did not tell you how often they wished they could arrive before you without a mask, without a flawless explanation, and without pretending to be untouched by the connection. They believed they needed to solve every uncertainty before speaking. They wanted to approach you only when they had the perfect words, the perfect timing, and complete confidence in what would happen next. But perfection became another hiding place. Today taught them that a sincere, imperfect truth can open more doors than a polished silence ever will. Your answer is closer than you think. The person connected to you is preparing to admit that they have measured other connections against the peace they felt near you. This does not mean they lived without joy, growth, or meaningful moments. It means something specific remained unmatched, the feeling of being recognized without needing to explain every part of themselves. Around you, their heart felt both exposed and safe, and that combination frightened them because it made the bond impossible to treat as ordinary. They could distract themselves from longing, but they could not reproduce recognition. They could create noise, fill their schedule, and appear completely focused on the future, yet one unexpected reminder of you could return them to the truth in seconds. That is exactly what happened today. The revelation did not invent their feelings. It removed the covering from feelings that had been present all along. Don't skip, because while they were still holding the note, the person who had clarified the old misunderstanding returned with one more detail. They revealed that you had once defended your soulmate when they were not present. You had been given an opportunity to speak harshly, agree with an unfair assumption, or expose something private. Instead, you protected their dignity. You did not do it for recognition, because you had no reason to believe they would ever find out. You did it because even while confused or hurt, you refused to make their humanity smaller. When your soulmate heard this, the room seemed to shift. They had imagined many versions of what you might have said during the period of distance, but they never imagined you had quietly stood up for them. That discovery reached beyond romance. It showed them the nature of your heart. They realized that your care had not depended on attention, reward, or proximity. Even when no one was watching, you chose grace. This is the big thing that happened. Your soulmate learned that the person they feared approaching had already shown them a form of loyalty they did not know existed. Their eyes filled with emotion, not only because they felt grateful, but because they saw the contrast between your courage and their hesitation. You had protected them in a room where they could not hear you. They had protected themselves from vulnerability in a room where you might have understood them. The realization was both beautiful and painful. It made them ask what might have happened if they had trusted your character sooner. It made them wonder how many nights you questioned your worth because they were too afraid to explain their silence. It made them see that the conversation they owe you is not optional. It is an act of respect. Stay with me. They want to tell you what they learned, but they also want to listen. That is important. They are not planning to arrive with a dramatic declaration and then disappear behind another wall. For the first time, they are preparing to hear how their actions affected you. They know your experience may not match the story they constructed from a distance. You may have felt ignored when they believed they were giving you space. You may have felt rejected when they believed they were waiting for a safer time. You may have mistaken their fear for indifference because they never gave you the information needed to understand it. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize that intention does not erase impact. They can explain why they withdrew, but they must also acknowledge what that withdrawal created. This new maturity is another part of the surprising change. They no longer want merely to be understood. They want to understand you. They are rehearsing how to say, "Tell me what the silence felt like from your side." That question may become the bridge neither of you knew how to build. What comes next changes everything, because as they began composing a message, they did not start with a grand promise. They started with your name. Then they wrote, "Something happened today, and I realized I have been allowing fear to speak for me. There is something you deserve to hear directly from me." They read the words several times. Their thumb hovered over the button. Old fear returned, whispering that they should wait until tomorrow. But then the lights in the room flickered once, the clock changed to a repeating number, and the folded note slipped from the table onto the floor beside their shoe. When they bent to pick it up, it opened again to that final handwritten sentence about not making a kind and overdue truth wait another day. They closed their eyes. Whether coincidence or spiritual symbolism, the moment carried enough meaning to move them forward. Still, before sending the message, they made one final decision. They did not want to hide the most important truth behind a screen. They wanted to hear your voice. They wanted the conversation to carry tone, pauses, and sincerity. They wanted you to know that this was not an impulsive message written during a passing emotional wave. So they saved the words and began preparing to call. Something huge is waiting for you. The call is not only about returning. It is about revealing why they left the emotional doorway in the first place, what they discovered about you today, and the choice they are ready to make now. Yet there is another mystery beneath it all. Your soulmate has been carrying something connected to you, something physical, small, and deeply meaningful. It may be a note, a photograph, a gift, or an object you once touched and forgot. They kept it even when they tried to convince themselves that the chapter was finished. They moved other things, changed routines, and placed memories out of sight, but they could never bring themselves to release this one object. Today, after learning how you defended them, they took it out again. And hidden with it was a message they had written to you but never delivered. The date on that message is important because it proves their desire to speak did not begin today. Today simply gave them the courage to stop postponing it. Don't look away now. The words inside that hidden message are about to reveal why your soulmate believes the connection survived a silence that should have ended it. Behind the final barrier stands the confession they have guarded most carefully, and this is the moment every earlier sign has been leading toward. Your soulmate unfolded the old message with trembling hands. The paper had been opened and closed so many times that its edges had softened. They began reading, expecting to encounter an earlier version of themselves they had outgrown. Instead, they found a truth that was still alive. The first lines described a moment when you made them feel seen during a difficult season. You may not have known how significant your presence was. Perhaps you offered a gentle sentence, noticed their discomfort, or stayed near them when others became distracted. To you, it may have seemed small. To your soulmate, it became a light they remembered whenever life felt uncertain. The letter said that meeting you had changed how they understood connection. Before you, they believed love had to be loud to be real. They believed intensity was proven through constant pursuit, dramatic gestures, or perfect certainty. But your presence introduced them to something quieter and stronger. Recognition, steadiness, and the feeling that two people could understand each other before every word had been spoken. Stay with me. Because midway through the letter they discovered a sentence they did not remember writing. If I ever become distant, it will not be because I stopped feeling, it will be because I started feeling more than I knew how to hold. The words stunned them. Their past self had predicted the very pattern they later lived. They had become distant, not because the bond lacked meaning, but because its meaning demanded a level of honesty they had not yet learned to offer. Your answer is closer than you think. The letter continued with a promise they had never fulfilled. One day, when courage became greater than fear, they would tell you everything directly. Today, holding that promise after the misunderstanding was corrected and your quiet loyalty revealed, your soulmate realized that day had arrived. This is where the story begins. Until now, both of you have been living inside separate interpretations of the same connection. You saw their actions and created the best explanation you could. They saw fragments of your life and did the same. Neither of you possessed the full truth. Yet something continued to move beneath the surface, asking not for fantasy but for clarity. The conversation they need to have with you is the moment those two separate stories may finally meet. Your soulmate wants to explain that they never forgot the last meaningful look you shared. They remember the pause before one of you turned away. They remember sensing that something important remained unsaid. They remember going home and replaying the moment, wondering whether they had imagined the emotion in your eyes. They wanted to return, but pride told them that if you cared, you would reach out first. At the same time, you may have been waiting for them to show that their feelings were sincere. Two hearts stood before the same bridge, each waiting for the other to take the first step. The bridge remained empty, but it never disappeared. Today, your soulmate decided to walk onto it. Don't skip. The emotional twist is that the something big is not a sudden event outside the two of you. It is a transformation inside the person who once believed silence could keep them safe. They have realized that avoiding vulnerability did not protect their heart, it only prevented their heart from being known. They now understand that rejection, while painful, would at least be truthful. Silence offered no answer at all. It trapped both of you inside questions. So when they talk to you, they intend to give you freedom rather than pressure. They will not ask you to make an immediate decision. They will not claim that spiritual signs erase the need for trust, communication, or time. Instead, they want to place the truth gently before you and allow your heart to respond honestly. That may be the strongest proof that their feelings have matured. They are no longer focused only on being chosen. They are focused on becoming someone capable of choosing with clarity, showing up consistently, and respecting whatever healing the past requires. Stay till the end, because the most surprising revelation is still hidden in the final lines of the letter. Your soulmate had written that if the two of you ever found your way back to an honest conversation, they would reveal a dream they experienced shortly after meeting you. In that dream, they stood inside a vast hallway filled with closed doors. Every door carried a different possibility, but none opened. Then they heard your voice, not calling them by name, but repeating a phrase you had once spoken in real life. As they followed it, they reached a window flooded with golden morning light. Beside the window were two empty chairs facing the same horizon. They woke with an unusual sense of peace, as though the dream was not promising an effortless future but showing them the destination of honest companionship, two people choosing to face the same direction. They never told you because they feared it would sound too intense. Yet today, when sunlight broke through the clouds and fell across their path, the dream returned in perfect detail. The golden light, the feeling of a doorway opening, and the certainty that their next step depended on courage, all of it came back. What comes next changes everything. They are ready to tell you about that dream, but more importantly, they are ready to tell you what it means to them now. It does not mean